Gotcha. So you're just figuring it out on your own as you went, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You just see what works.
I love it. Can you talk now as a business owner, as somebody who does have to be a leader to the employees of your firm and kind of in the community? Is there anything you notice that's specific to kind of leading design professionals, versus maybe being a leader on a basketball team or in sports, something along those lines?
I think it's all the same, to be honest with you. You're trying to lead people. You all have a common goal in mind. Simon Sinek has a book, Leaders Eat Last.
Great
that's
book.
One of my favorites of his. And he equates leadership to more of a tribal. He compares it to like the days of tribes, right? So you have this single leader, and he's responsible for the safety and the care of his tribe. And if something goes wrong, he or she doesn't turn around and say, "Oh, it's your fault." The leader takes on all that blame. So if something goes wrong in Winston Engineering, Anthony Winston is responsible, right? Not necessarily my engineers. I won't say that to the public, right? You always have to be a tight team. So if something goes wrong, it's on me, and it's my responsibility to figure out why that happened. Like, you got to do some root cause analysis. And if my employees mess up or whatever the case may be, I don't automatically look at them and say, "Oh, it's your fault." I look and see, what did I do wrong, right? Was there some type of direction that I gave that wasn't clear and concise that led them down this path? And then we just figure out how to fix it and move on. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen again. So
Right.
I think that's the important part of being a leader. Unfortunately, we have some politicians, I won't name their names, but when things go wrong, they like to point fingers and publicly point fingers. And I think that shows a lot of weakness, to be honest with you.
Right. I agree. So Simon Sinek, Start With Why, was the book that made me think that I could actually be an entrepreneur. And I remember watching a talk that he gave, and it was probably about Leaders Eat Last. I have not read it. I need to, because I love him as an author. And he was talking about how do you bring somebody along on your team and get buy-in. And it was take ownership, right? Which is, I got you. I'm going to be asking you to do things. I'm going to kind of ask you to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. You're going to make mistakes, not like you might make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, and I will own those mistakes for you to the client, right? You got to be able to come back with me and we'll figure out what went wrong. But to anybody that might point a finger at you, like, that's, I'm the shield there. And then I want your feedback, right? Whether you're a person who's first day on the job or you've been doing this for 30 years, you're my right-hand person. I want you to have a vested interest. And if you think that there's a better way to do something, bring it up, right? It's not necessarily, we have systems for a reason and we built those things. It's not that, everything is, but if you see something that's going on, I want to know about it. Mm-hmm. And I remember doing that with, at my prior firm, with a person that we had just hired. He wasn't sure that he wanted to be in our industry. He was kind of just figuring it out. And he stayed because of that buy-in. He stayed because of those leadership lessons. And I was fascinated by that. And I felt connected to him and he felt connected to me. And what I'm getting at there is that I'm hearing from a lot of agency owners, architects and engineers, that kind of this generation is missing a little bit of that leadership, right? They're missing a little bit of that. I want to go in and learn it. I want to be a part of it. I want the next level. Kind of, you were talking about an employee, the veteran, right? Who's like, I want it. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to get it, right? Whether that's initiative, I don't know what it is, but I think the way that we're trying to treat that is just to show them what's possible, just show them what's out there. It's not right for everybody by any means. Entrepreneurship is not right for everybody, but just kind of, even if you wanted to stay within your own firm, taking that leadership and being willing to follow as much as being a leader, right? Being willing to come under somebody and then also turn around to maybe the team below you and be able to do that.
I I'll push back on that a little bit. I don't necessarily think it's generational, because I think every generation has that, oh, well, back in my day, we did this, right? And we're no different. We look at the youngsters and like, oh, they seem like they don't want it. Like, is it video games? Is it social media? But obviously I didn't have social media as a kid, but people said the same thing about my generation and, you know, in general. Right, I'm a millennial, so, or at least one of the beginning stages of a millennial. So millennials get bashed all the time.
Right. You know what? You're right. You are right. And every generation, it feels like, you know, you kind of look down and say, oh, well, you know, they don't work as hard, or they don't do these things. At some point, if we're talking about ownership, we have to kind of take the mirror, hold it up and say, are we doing the things necessary to retain folks? Because I've also heard that message echoed from firms, and then you go in and you look at the culture and you look at the way you're run, and I'm like, within 5 minutes I can tell you exactly why nobody wants to stay here. Right? This is a starting position. It's not a long-term position. And so sometimes we just have to inspect what we expect, right? And look, and I bet we could do a lot more of that. So I love it. So last question for you here, and before we do that, can you tell us just like where folks can find you on social media? You know, I think your banner has your website there, but is it WinstonEng.com?
Yep, WinstonEng.com. You can follow us on Instagram, just search Winston Engineering. I'm on Twitter, Winston Engineering, Facebook, Winston Engineering, LinkedIn. You search my name on LinkedIn, Anthony Winston III, I'll pop up. So yeah, I'm always posting. Actually, my latest post was that we're looking for a new MEP drafter. So
perfect.
Had a really solid interview today. Got some more lined up for Monday, but these hires are pretty critical. So awesome. Yeah, I'm always posting, always engaging. I get people all the time, hitting me up saying, hey, I like what you're doing. I want to do the same thing, and I'll give them the information.
Right.
If you're not willing to put in the work, please don't waste my time, right? Because that happens quite often. People ask you for advice on stuff, and then they don't follow through. Then it's like, you just wasted 20 minutes of my time for nothing.
Right. Right. And then as far as who you're looking to collaborate with, is it primarily architects, or like who would be a great person for you to meet?
Architects, contractors, developers, pretty much anybody in the construction realm, right? The gatekeepers. Sometimes I get subs, like electrical contractors, who will bring me on to a project, and then I'll contract directly with the client.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's really kind of the bread and butter. Or if you're just an owner of a business who has a new building going up, like I work with people who franchise different restaurants and stuff like that. So
perfect. Awesome. All right, so the last question for you here is, what is the best advice that you could give to an up-and-coming design professional?
Well, it's a couple things. First, learn the business. I think I wish I had, and I don't have regrets, but it probably would have made my job easier if I had worked for an MEP firm prior to starting my business. But maybe that made me work extra hard to figure things out. So definitely dive in and work for somebody and understand the business development side of that. And if be open and honest with your boss, like, hey, one day I want to start my own firm. How do you run a business, right? Most business owners worth their salt will actually go and teach you. If one of my employees want to do their own thing eventually, I have no problem training them, right? Because I want you to be happy, whether that's with me or not.
Right.
And then also, like, constantly read books on business development and stuff like that. Like The Right It is another book that I just I'm getting through now, but it talks about prototyping. So not prototyping, but prototyping. So I'll give you an example. IBM apparently came up with talk to text decades ago, but they didn't know how they were going to do it or if anybody would be interested. So they sat someone down in front of a computer, what looked like a computer, and had the person talk. And the person saw what they said on the screen. And they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. But they didn't know it was somebody in another room typing. So instead of spending all the money to develop a prototype, they did that to kind of gauge if people would be interested in it. So the book teaches you how to spend a heck of a lot less money and a lot less time on your idea. And that's if you want to be a firm owner, or if you want to be an app developer, or whatever the case may be. That's the route you take. Someone who wanted to open up a bookstore, she just rented out an empty building and put a sign, a bookstore is coming. And she started to kind of gauge to see what kind of traffic she would get, people being interested. And that gave her some data, right? So that's a really good book to read. And then also Slicing Pie, which if you're starting a business with a partner, whether that's a firm or a restaurant or whatever the case may be, it teaches you how to literally slice, not literally, but how to slice the equity pie, and gives you some really concrete ways of doing that. For instance, I'm working on a startup, and initially I've been doing a lot more of the work on the front end because I know how to start a business, where my partner, not necessarily, he hasn't had as much experience. So right now my equity portion is much higher than his right now. Maybe in a month from now, he'll be the one stepping in to do a lot more work. So it kind of teaches you how to slice the pie based on the time you put in and the actual physical dollars that you put into the business. So those two books that one of my business mentors gave me have been game changers for me. So that's something any aspiring entrepreneur should be looking at, or design professional.
I love it. I love it. Solid advice. Awesome, sir. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been absolutely amazing. And Anthony Winston, we will put all the contact info, and then when this goes live, we'll make sure to tag in the post. And thanks again for doing this, Anthony. Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.